I also find bucks this time of year in a lot of your rut travel corridors. Nowhere near is it like the 1st of November, and it's just constant movement. But once again, with trail cameras that I leave out year round, even in rut areas, you'll see them walk by a signpost rub with in between a saddle or pinch points. And then I started to do some research on it, and there actually is a lot of evidence and a lot of very knowledgeable hunters that will say that this is like a phenomenon that happens this time of year. Is once they start getting that little surge of testosterone, that's what'll cause these little mini shifts.
How do you approach summer scouting? Like, what is your first goal getting into the summer, and especially as you transition to late summer, early fall?
Yeah, I mean, and there's a whole lot to it, especially once again this time of year. There's a lot on my mind and a lot on my agenda. Number one, though, right now is I'm actually monitoring bucks coming through some of their rut areas. Because you guys might see it down south, maybe not, but they'll have their summer areas, they'll have their rut areas, sometimes wintering areas. What you'll find right now is, as bucks are getting a little trickle of testosterone, they'll start to make ventures through some of their rut zones. So I'm paying attention to certain individual deer based on this wide net of cameras. What areas was that buck going through throughout the rut, or throughout the summer, I mean. Because even though they have bucks will have a rut range, but it's usually massive up here. It's a very big area, but you can take some really key notes of intel by paying attention to, oh wow, it's just random right now too, where I'll have cameras in certain sites, maybe it's just doe feeding or doe bedding and really not getting much for bucks, and all of a sudden you get a picture of a big deer just one time, this time of year. So that's kind of my first thing, is I'm paying attention to what some of these bucks are doing right now, just for a short period of time, like 1-2 week period, where you'll see bucks start to go into some of the rut areas, and then they'll leave and go back to their summer areas. So that's kind of number one, is paying attention to that intel. Then secondly, I'm paying more attention to, I'm seeing what mass crops are available or habitat changes, but I'm trying to think further ahead. Like right now I'm seeing some pretty heavy drought conditions. We had a very wet spring and early summer, and then all of a sudden the rain just shut right off. You guys might have even noticed as you came through some areas through Pennsylvania, the grass is just brown in places. And what I'll find is drought seasons, and if this carries into fall, which I think it will, you'll see huge changes in bedding, where they feed, the way they travel, especially in the mountains where you have springs all over the hillsides. They start to dry up. Then you have just down in the creek bottoms, maybe just one stream left. So you're paying attention to water table, as well as you're also thinking, because a lot of times, even a mature buck will like this, if he can have security, if he can have food and water close by, then you can start to find pockets of concentrations of deer, or you might be able to pattern a mature buck easier now, thinking ahead, for the upcoming season versus, there's some years, like I actually don't like it when all the mass trees produce, there's water everywhere, there's cover everywhere, then it makes it way more unpredictable. But when you either have drought conditions or spotty mass crops or minimal habitat or pockets of good habitat, it actually makes it easier. So right now I'm paying attention to, okay, what are the conditions likely to be come hunting season? And then after that, I'm still right now going around doing the basics. What areas did the white oaks produce, the red oaks, even paying attention to browse, and more so the browse that is probably going to be what they're eating in the early fall versus right now. But most of it's just thinking ahead. I know I rambled on a lot, but you kind of hit me at a topic that I can just go on and on about for a long time.
There's a lot there. I'm gonna take this from Andrew, because Andrew's already thinking. Andrew, think of what you're gonna say. One thing you mentioned early on, we're gonna break a lot of that stuff down.
Yeah.
That you said that during a short window of time in the summer, you'll see mature bucks, return to an area they'll be in the rut for a short window of time, and then they revert back to that summer core area.
Yep.
How long have you seen that, and when did you notice that?
It's been about the last 4 or 5 years I've really paid close attention to that, because I would, the thing about summer bucks is they're generally pretty tight to a certain area. And then running this real wide range of cameras. I mean, you're talking, like I said, last year, close to a couple hundred cameras, and most of them are out year round. So where I get a lot of this information is, you're monitoring bucks in a certain area. Then all of a sudden, some of them disappear for a little while, mid-July, late July, early August. And then, because most of my cameras aren't cell cams, and a lot of this data doesn't even get retrieved till closer to hunting season, especially when my landscape business slows down and I get in the woods a little bit more. But I'll, 2-3 miles away on another camera, I'll pull a card and be like, wow, that buck was here for like a week, or maybe he was here just one day and then he was gone. But then I start to think, well, I remembered that buck in the rut here 2 years ago or last year, or whatever. And you start to tie it all together. And then I started to do some research on it. And there actually is a lot of evidence and a lot of very knowledgeable hunters that will say that this is like a phenomenon that happens this time of year. Is once they start getting that little surge of testosterone, that's what'll cause these little mini shifts. But yet it's not permanent, rarely permanent at least, and they'll go back to their summer core areas for, it's anywhere from, they'll leave for their rut areas, I see anywhere from late August to mid-October. Every buck seems to be different on that too.
And, okay, and by the way, also for clarification for audience members, bucks are still in velvet. Yep. What time are bucks typically shedding velvet around here?
Here it's the latter part of August or early part of September.
Okay.
Yep.
And these rut areas you're talking about, these bucks, you seem to see shift to, because we've actually just had a question come in randomly about this.
Yeah.
You see these bucks kind of shift to these areas. Are these areas more like a terrain funnel? Is it habitat related, or is it doe related? These like rut areas that you're talking about, you're seeing them kind of bounce into for a little while and come back out of.
I think it's two of those things. I think number one, it's doe related. Like I will be getting pictures, like especially lately on a cell cam, I haven't had a good buck there all summer. Then pow, big deer just shows up. Especially like a lot of times on a scrape too that does have been hitting. He'll go there, he'll leave his scent, and you may not see that deer. And it might not even be that particular scrape, but he will be in that area come fall. You've already got a major clue, because once again, the rut range is massive usually, but there's certain spots within that area that you can take advantage of. You're trying to narrow things down. But then secondly, I also find bucks this time of year in a lot of your rut travel corridors. Nowhere near is it like the 1st of November, and it's just constant movement. But once again, with trail cameras that I leave out year round, even in rut areas, you'll see them walk by a signpost rub with in between a saddle or pinch points, because those are just natural travel corridors that they're going through to cover a good amount of ground in an easy way.
Hold on. No, hold on.
We're fighting over questions.
I know, but
hold on. I have to interject right here. I have seen exactly what you're talking about on some cameras that I'm running in Alabama over these last 3 or 4 seasons now. We've got one area, it's Big Woods, that we hunt, and I've had cameras out there continuously for about 3 years now. And last summer in particular, our rut's a little bit behind y'all's in that area. It's in really mid to late December into January. By the first week of January, it's starting to tail off. They shed velvet sometime in September, usually there. But last season, towards the latter part of August, I had cameras in all these areas that I'd be getting a lot of does over and over and over again. And then boom, 1 week, there's like nice bucks all over these cameras. I'm like, holy smokes. Well, then come the rut, I hardly ever got them after that. Yeah. And then when the rut showed up, those same bucks were running by those cameras all the time. And yesterday, one of them showed up actually. My cell camera pinged, and I looked, haven't had a picture of a buck right there this entire summer. The camera's been there since last year. I've actually got to go change the batteries in it soon. But same thing with that one. Does. And then out of nowhere, just this lone magnum came walking through.
Exactly.
And so I've been seeing that in Alabama. I just wanted to bring that up. Again, you're in Pennsylvania, we're in Alabama. We live like 15 hours from here, but we're seeing the same thing even down where we're from.
Yep.
Also, when you're seeing these bucks do that little shift, is it normally like one mature buck, or is it a batch or group of bucks doing that?
I usually don't see them in a bachelor group. I think some of these groups split up, or you might have 2 bucks together that were with 4 or 5. A lot of times the bigger mature deer are singled out too. And it's just funny. They'll just split from their buddies and leave for a week, sometimes less than that, and then they just show back up. And honestly, it's exactly what's going on. It's not some fluke thing. It's that surge of testosterone starting to get their minds. I mean, bucks are completely different than does when it comes to breeding, rut behavior. Like I've always believed, and obviously there's evidence, like once a buck sheds his velvet, he's ready to breed. I mean, it's time, it's go time, but he knows it's early. But yet there's from now till he sheds his velvet right until the heat of the rut, there's going to be changes in his mindset, his behavior, even how he walks and how he acts around his buddies. Like he's thinking more about the breeding season each and every day.
Same thing. 4 out of 5 times they're by themselves. At least the big ones are by themselves. Every once in a while they'll have another buck with them, but usually it's just a single buck, and they'll come through and they'll work a licking branch, full velvet, be just thrashing that thing. Which we don't want to go too far down the scrape rabbit hole.
But we're going to talk about scrapes from a inventory standpoint in the summer, but I do want to wait on that for a second.